Hi there, guys. Today I'm going to be teaching you some strategies that you can use to learn how to play out of the park baseball. So before we dive into these, the first thing I'm going to ask you to do is try to identify where you are in terms of your baseball knowledge and your sports simulator knowledge. So really all that you need to understand out of the park baseball and be able to play it effectively is if you can watch a baseball game, understand everything that's going on, and you know the basic statistics, you should be fine for out of the park baseball. And for sports simulators, it's a little bit more complicated since all of them are so much more different from each other. But if you have played a more complex sports simulator, say Football Manager, that's probably going to be enough for you to quickly sort of adapt to out of park baseball from where you are currently. So the first strategy that I'm going to recommend for people who have a good amount of baseball knowledge but don't necessarily have as much sports sim knowledge is to play a simpler baseball simulator. I will link some in the chat, some free online ones that you can just quickly do. This is a pretty good stepping stone from uh, to out of the park baseball because they're not going to have all the complex mechanics. They're going to be simpler engines, and it will allow you to learn how sports simulators work more easily. I know for me, I personally played Zen GM as a stepping stone to out of the park baseball, and when I got here, the finances, the contracts, the trading, it was a lot easier for me, and I was immediately able to start adapting to more the advanced mechanics. So that may not necessarily work quite as well for you, but I do think it's a great way to adapt to the game. Another thing that you can do is play Out of the Park Go. While this is pretty much just a little bit of a last step, and it's just almost the full version already, it is slightly more simple as they do not currently have all the mechanics in. So for people who are just looking for a more basic game, a slightly more basic game, just a last step up to Out of the Park Baseball, the full version, Out of the Park Go is not a bad option at the moment. And I would really only recommend it for people who feel like they are just a step away from being able to understand the full game. You're going to need to do something else if you need a little bit more than that. Another option that I've heard frequently recommended is to play through manager mode. I don't personally love this one a lot, but I do think it's a great way to learn the mechanics of the game, how different interactions are going to work, what types of players do what, uh, and overall learning a little bit about baseball. I'm really only going to recommend this for people who do not know very much about baseball to sort of adapt to the game and learn the rules of it and such. And while it can be a helpful way to learn what types of players are going to perform what way and what defines a good player, I think you can learn that more effectively through the general manager style of play. So I'm really only going to recommend that for people with lower baseball knowledge. And there are plenty of options that you can change to simplify your gameplay as well. Out of the Park Baseball has a ton of different options that help make a more realistic, full experience for the baseball world, but you don't necessarily need to be able to play the game. And I would recommend adding them in more as you start to master the basics of the gameplay and you're at a point where you feel comfortable enough to take on more advanced options. So I'm going to show you guys these as we go through them and explain them. So the first thing you're going to want to do is disable the scouting system, which I've got on the screen here. Then you're going to want to make your scouting system more precise. Your rating scales are going to be a little bit more accurate, so you get a more complete idea of how good the player is. You're going to want to disable the coaching system. You're going to want to disable owner goals. You're going to want to disable injuries. You're going to want to disable suspensions. You're going to want to disable personalities. You're going to want to lower the trade difficulty. You're going to want to disable the Rule 5 draft, and you're going to want to disable international scouting discoveries and the signing period. So all of these rules are sort of designed at cutting some fat on the edges, just a little bit of extra mechanics that you don't necessarily want to deal with. A lot of these, especially such as the scouting system, the coaching system, those can be seriously affecting how well you can play the game if you don't understand how to play them. So for somebody who's just learning the trade mechanics, how to acquire prospects, how to build up your minor league system, how to sign players to contracts, how players are aging and developing, these are going to make the thing a lot harder because the system that coaches and scouts use to accurately gauge a player or to help them develop is complicated in its own right and definitely not something I would recommend a beginner try to tackle. Disabling injuries will just make it easier for you to avoid those kind of depth issues and adapt to the game before you have to worry about that. Disabling suspensions is just going to remove that from issue. It's not too big of a deal. Disabling personalities is going to make you not have to worry about a whole nother system to tackle. These things are not super difficult once you understand the basics of the game, but again, for a new player who's trying to do all this at once, I think it's something you just want to cut off. Lowering the trade difficulty will make it easier for you to build a team, and I suggest that you gradually increase it as you start to learn the game to whatever level you feel comfortable with. And remember, it's about having fun, not about playing on the hardest difficulty at an elite level, so just put it wherever you feel like you can have the most enjoyment. And disabling the international scouting discoveries and signing period, that eliminates some of the randomness from the game, which I think often hurts you rather than helps you with other teams developing elite players from nothing. And it also makes the game a little bit more simple in that regard as well. Another pretty basic recommendation I would give out universally to people learning the game is play easier teams. I cannot overstate how much simpler it is to learn the game playing as the Los Angeles Dodgers than it is to play as, say, the Cleveland Indians or the Tampa Bay Rays or Miami Marlins, because the market size makes a huge difference. The Dodgers also happen to have one of the most well-made teams in the game. They have a lot of available money. It's just it's one of those cases where the more money you have, the better. And if you happen to get a lot of talent with your team, then great. So teams like the Astros, the Yankees, the Braves that have a lot of cash available and also a lot of talent are really good. But teams like the Cubs and such that don't necessarily have the same level of talent but have a lot of money are still really good to play and really easy. So once you've done that, then you can start transitioning to more difficult teams. And finally, I'm going to recommend that you guys use tutorials purely for supplemental knowledge, not to learn the game directly. In my opinion, you can learn a lot more and have a lot more fun with hands-on experience and actually going through and playing the game than you will by watching some videos or reading through guides. So really big that you just play the game yourself and learn to enjoy it. It will be frustrating, but it will be rewarding as well. So that is the best advice I can give to anybody, just to learn the game by playing the game. And tutorials are still useful. So if you run into a bump or something, or you need help understanding something, or a little bit of a sharpening of your stick or something, then you can go to a tutorial specifically for whatever you're trying to learn, and that will be a lot more helpful than just trying to go through every single tutorial about everything and learning the game that way. Well, anyways, guys, I hope this was helpful. Be sure to leave a comment if you have any questions or want to ask about something specific that I can help you learn, or if you want tools that you can use to learn the game, I'm more than happy to help. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys on the next video.